If a storm comes next week, what's the plan? What's the plan? Are we going to go through this all over again?
As we deal with rainfall this weekend, we are compelled to return to a time of historic rainfall and the onslaught unleashed by Hurricane Harvey. We are still hearing incredible stories of hardship like that of Christina Gibson, who spent 3 days unrescued atop a 610 overpass as her home was first flooded and then looted. As we enter a new hurricane season, Kashmir Gardens Super Neighborhood Leader Keith Downey says not near enough has been done to prepare and protect his vulnerable neighborhood from the next storm. I want to start with Bill King on this. What is Downey talking about?
So, look, the way the people of Houston came together, voluntarily went out and rescued people, rushed down to George R. Brown to staff that, was a wonderful outpouring of support from this community. But what's becoming increasingly apparent is that the government at various levels was really caught flat-footed by this event. We didn't have nearly as many high water rescue vehicles as we should have had, rescue boats. The Corps obviously had not thought through what they were going to need to do in case they had to do a release that wasn't coordinated. It was in the middle of the night. They were out telling people to get out of the houses at 2 and 3 in the morning. Clearly, we were caught flat-footed on this. You know, after Hurricane Ike and Hurricane Rita, I served on 2 gubernatorial commissions that study what went wrong in those 2 storms. We need to do that on Harvey because we need to understand, because, you know, in the middle of this storm, the mayor issued an order for the fire department to stay home and not come to work. That didn't make any sense, and we need to look at what happened exactly so we can fix it next time.
Okay, Tony, you live on that side of town and know what folks go through. When you're lower income, you are more vulnerable when these major weather events occur. Can we do a better job? Should we do a better job?
Well, we have to. And you're talking about lower income folks. If you're going to pay for flood insurance, that's $300 a year at least. That may not seem like a lot of money to some folks, but it's a lot of money to other folks. And if they don't get that insurance, they're going to get wiped out during the next flood. You saw those pictures you just aired right now. I want everyone to feel their pocketbook tighten a little bit, because if they keep showing those pictures again, so we're playing basically rain roulette. We're hoping we don't get flooded again like that. We're gonna. And the question becomes, if we don't address this in ways where every citizen in Houston can say, well, here's what was fixed, we're gonna be living in a ghost town, because pretty much people will be bailing the city. They won't be sponsoring any infrastructure events. And not just the poor people, but the middle class. Also, upper class folks, they got drowned because they had releases in wealthy, affluent neighborhoods that thought they'd never get hit. So what I want to stress is that we're trying to come up with some complicated answers. If you want to win election this November, you need to come out to the people, you need to come out to us and give us specific plans, and we need to be able to answer this, or you should get voted out of office.
Okay, Jess, jump in here.
Yeah, I think I like what Tony said about specific plans, and in some ways we need to get back to basics, and we need to, after Hurricane Ike and Rita, we reevaluated our evacuation routes, and there was some very easy communication that was given to the community about what to do in the case of such an emergency again. I think that there needs to be a little bit more communication as we are heading into this next hurricane season. Here we're talking about the weather. We're watching these tropical situations occur in the Gulf right now, and we're like, oh my goodness, this could, this might not be a one-time occurrence. We all know we have been flooded year after year after year. And the fact that when we looked at even, Addicks Reservoir and some of these other places that simply could have been dredged, even our local, in our local neighborhoods, the trenches and ditches could have been dredged better for proper drainage, simply to get out to where it needed to go. Have some of those basics been covered, and have some of the basic communications been given to the neighborhoods that should this happen again, here is proper ways to evacuate, or here are proper ways to communicate with your emergency officials to get help and survive properly.
I want to give Bob some time here. Go ahead.
On a positive note, it does appear that at least some of the reservoir managers have learned some lessons. I noticed this week that the Trinity River Authority dropped about 1.5 feet of water out of Lake Livingston in anticipation of this rain event coming on shore today. So they are making some preparations, and that's a good thing. You think of these storms as being a once-in-a-lifetime event,
right.
But right after this last hurricane, Harvey, I went to the George R. Brown Convention Center and I interviewed this woman and her kids who had this incredible story. They spent 18 hours on the roof of their apartment on the east side of Houston and watched, she showed me a video of this poor young baby being ripped away from two women that were trying to hold on to it and who drowned. They watched 2 or 3 people drown in the middle of this thing. They came to Houston from New Orleans after being evacuated in that flood. So it can happen again. We need to do everything we can to make sure that it doesn't.
Okay, I'm going to switch topics real quick, and we can come back to this later. Texas Republicans gathered in San Antonio this week for their state convention. It's pretty clear the vast majority have kind of transferred a good bit of their affection, not that they don't like him anymore, but transferred affection from native son Ted Cruz to President Donald Trump. Question, is the Texas GOP in a stronger or weaker position heading into the midterms? Our Jessica Colon was there on the front row. Give us a report.
Absolutely. Well, I will say this, that Senator Ted Cruz gave a rousing speech, and it had some of the highest applause lines of the entire convention. It had been a busy week, an energetic week. Business of the convention was done. The governor, laid out his policies. We are ready for these midterm elections. We have our business done. We have our chairman was reelected. We have our leadership in place. There is great enthusiasm for this Republican ticket as we head into November, and we are ready to keep winning, Greg.
Was there fear of the blue wave?
No, actually, and because there wasn't, the results of the primary revealed that the blue wave was not as strong as the red wave here in Texas. We set a record primary turnout this year with over 1.5 million voters, with Senator Cruz leading the top of the ballot.
We on What's Your Point are all about turnout, so both sides need to get involved with the process, right, Marcus? All right. It would be negligent for us not to mention the score-settling basketball grudge match between comedian Jimmy Kimmel and Texas Senator Ted Cruz. The two met head-to-head last night on the hardwood of Texas Southern University, and by literally every account, neither the politician nor the entertainer should quit their day jobs. And a 40-minute struggle cut mercifully short by mutual offensive inaptitude. The junior senator from Texas prevailed 11-9. Panel, would anybody like to make a point? I'm going to start with Marcus.
As much as these guys are terrible basketball players, but they admitted, that they were. I do applaud this effort at two people who don't share the same views on some of our political issues, deciding that they would at least, come together in some effort to work together. And I'm hopeful that this will set a tone for other people to begin to not put on terrible basketball games.
Okay.
But shout out to Texas Southern University for hosting.
Well, I would like to say this is akin to the summit that we just had with Kim Jong-un.
Oh my
Right.
gosh.
When we just, so the best thing about it is Singapore was Texas Southern University. And I thought it was the greatest place because I'm working there, and I want to say that it's been wonderful to be able to have the school in a spotlight that's positive. I love Jimmy Kimmel. I don't always love Ted Cruz, but he tries to do well. He doesn't know he's doing wrong sometimes, but I'm just glad that they were able to come over to an HBCU, historically black college or university, and be able to play this game without any huge protests, without any big hullabaloo. So hats off to TSU.